Oh, Sifu Row.
Sifu Wan, you have disrespected me for the last time. Your tardiness will not be accepted.
I am not late. You are. Sifu Row. You must go down. Respect. Kick ass, kick ass, kick ass, kick ass. It's the rude boy Juan Agadella, the Grandmaster Champion of them all. And next to me, maxing and relaxing, is the cinephile, Chris Rowe. Ah, man, what the was that for, man? Jesus. What's your problem?
The name is Rao Wan, as I'm sure you know by now.
Listen, I got a niece. She spells her last name R-O-W-E just like you, and she pronounces it as Rowe.
Wan, once you have something for which you will die, you can truly live.
Anyways, we're going to be taking a look at George Nolfi's second film, Birth of the Dragon. A biopic of what we think is going to be about Bruce Lee. Chris, fill us in.
Thanks, Juan, and all is forgiven. Thanks, everyone, for letting us have a break. I'm back. I'm relaxed. I'm ready to talk movies. Bruce Lee, a.k.a. America's other sweetheart. America couldn't get enough of his films in the 70s, but who's filling that void now? Answer, WWE Films and director George Nolfi with the film Birth of the Dragon. Set in 1964 San Francisco, Birth of the Dragon takes place years before Bruce Lee was a global phenomenon and aims to show how he transformed into the conduit of Kung Fu to the world. Inspired by a fight Bruce Lee had with Shaolin Kung Fu master Wong Jack Man, Birth of the Dragon depicts a cocky Lee who has to navigate Eastern and Western culture, exemplified by a young, white Kung Fu student named Steve. Does Birth of the Dragon entertain? And does it represent this story in any sort of respectful, interesting way? Sifu Wan, what did you think?
Thanks, Chris. This movie was an interesting take. Unlike other biopics where it's like, it's jumping around like a Wikipedia article, kind of like All Eyes on Me. This one kind of focuses on that legendary battle between Wong Jack Man and Bruce Lee. And I thought that was an interesting way of approaching this, because that battle is where, in essence, Bruce Lee takes his skills to the next level, right? And that's where the birth of the dragon happens, right? However, this movie is it falls flat on a lot of notes. I go into this film thinking I'm gonna get Bruce Lee. I barely get Bruce Lee. They use this man Steve McKee to be like a pawn to like bring Wong Jack Man and Bruce Lee together. The actual battle between those two was pretty cool. They used some visual effects that were kind of cool, but the battle between them, that's really what the movie's all about. And when you actually see it, it's like, okay, yes, this is cool. But I just didn't like how the movie revolves more around Steve McKee and Wong Jack Man as opposed to Bruce Lee, who they portray as this arrogant, like, Sifu, and just like he's kind of cocky and you kind of don't like him, and I'm like, okay, that's an interesting take, but I want to like Bruce Lee. I want to see him kick ass and take names. So it was an entertaining movie, but overall it just kind of fell flat. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you say, so to not be redundant, I'll just add a few things because it sounds like we're on the same page with a lot of this review. The film was entertaining, but that's not the same as being interesting or good. And in addition to some of the things that you brought up, especially the fact that Steve, this white guy, is the main character in a movie that's supposed to be about the origins of Bruce Lee. There's some problematic representation issues with the way that Steve sort of worships the mystical other in Master Wong. He's looked at as like Chinese mysticism in a way that doesn't feel very tactful. And his whole story, the whole drama and purpose for his story revolves around a damsel in distress story. So it's definitely not progressive in terms of any gender kind of things. I like the way that there was actually choreographed action. Some of it is cheesy, but you don't see a lot of actually executed action scenes in films nowadays, so I did appreciate that. But the film itself is pretty lame. So Juan, with all that being said, what are some of your final thoughts on Birth of the Dragon?
Okay, so the movie had some interesting moments. Really, all you're paying to see is the battle between Wong Jack Man and Bruce Lee. Other than that, you don't really get much of Bruce Lee. And for that, I'm dinging some points off of the final score. Story, it's kind of, it was an interesting take. On paper, it looked like a promising film, but the follow-through just fell short. So I'm going to give the movie 2.5 stars.
Yikes. Well, I also give Birth of the Dragon 2.5 stars. I think that it was an entertaining, though seriously flawed on a story level film. It was short. It introduces a conflict that it does resolve, but it doesn't really have characters, and it's not really about Bruce Lee. So it's hard to recommend a movie like that. 2.5 stars, Birth of the Dragon.
And that's our review for this week's film, Birth of the Dragon. To recap, this film was Boof.
It was Boof.
Certified Boof.
Absolutely Boof.
And not as a term of endearment.
No.
Boof. Let us know what you thought. Click this icon right here. Give us your star rating. As always, people, get involved. Like, comment, hit the subscribe button. But before we leave and sign off, I'm going to give a shout out to my main man, Razmiga, who gave me this title because he's a loser. And a sore loser at that. I'm the greatest champion of all time. It went down as one of the best matches in the squared circle. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's video game wrestling. So that's that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. I've heard too much about it, so it did go down.
Anyways, until next time, folks, we Cinema Boof, and we is out.
See ya.